It was my first week as a camp counselor. That week, we didn't have any kids. It was just all preparation for the weeks and kids to come. I fell asleep in my cabin, my roommate on the other side of the room. I recall dreaming about someone standing next to my bed with a flashlight held to my face. I woke up face down on my pillow. I never sleep in that position. I rolled over and looked at the foot of my bed and saw that someone really was standing there. At this point, I'm guessing my flashlight dream wasn't a dream after all, and it wasn't my roommate as she was fast asleep in her bed. It was dark in there. I could only make out a shape of a man with a wide-brimmed hat. He wasn't saying anything, and I sat up to see if I could make him out more clearly, to see which of the other counselors it was. Despite my blinking in an effort to adjust my eyes, I still couldn't tell who he was, and he still hadn't said anything. I felt embarrassed and kinda giggled out, "Who is that?" As soon as I said it, the man simply dissipated. I didn't feel afraid, but snuggled back into my pillow and fell asleep. I did switch rooms after that night, but I never saw the man in the hat ever again, and that was 23 years ago. I want to make completely clear that I don't believe in ghosts, demons, gods, or anything supernatural. I'm both a skeptic and an agnostic, but this is something that I've never been able to explain. So this happened around 8 years ago when I was 14. Shortly after the sun went down, the power went out in a weird way. So I ran to the living room and hung out there for a few hours until everyone started going to bed, except for my dad, who stayed there when I left. At the time, I was a bit scared of sleeping by myself, so I put up a mattress in my brother's room, closed the door and laid down. I remember being way too scared to close my eyes, so I remained there staring at the ceiling. Not long after that, I heard my father getting up from the couch and go into his room. By this point, my brother was already asleep, so I just laid there in silence, staring at the ceiling for a few more minutes. Now, after around 20 to 40 minutes of pure silence, I clearly heard footsteps coming from the hallway that leads to all our rooms. Keep in mind that by this point, both my parents are in their room, and my only sibling is sleeping right next to me, so I'm probably the only one that's still awake. I heard the footsteps start to come closer and closer to the door, and I started feeling a bit anxious. The footsteps continue getting closer until it finally gets to the door, followed by a few seconds of silence until the doorknob started turning. But the door didn't open right away, as if whatever was trying to open it was struggling with it. When the door finally opened, it wasn't pushed all the way, just enough so that a normal person could enter through it, and a figure entered the room. As I said, the lights went out earlier, so it was difficult to see in all the darkness. I just remember seeing a tall, dark figure that was darker than the darkness that surrounded it. The only thing I remember seeing clearly for some reason was that it had a top hat on its head. I clearly panicked for a second and started feeling my heart beat, so I lifted my torso a bit and was about to ask who had just entered the room. But right as I was about to talk, I heard a woman scream coming from the other direction. This was no ordinary scream. This was by far the most horrific sound I've ever heard, and sounded as if the woman literally tore her throat because of it. So I turned my head to try and see where it came from, but I just saw darkness and couldn't understand how my brother kept sleeping after that. Then I turned back again to the figure that's still in the same spot as before, staring directly at a wall, and I completely freeze out of pure terror and just stare at the thing for what could have been either minutes, seconds, or a few hours, until it finally turned away and left. I don't really remember much after that, just waking up the next day after having quite a few nightmares, so I probably just passed out after that. On the morning of the next day, my father had an accident and had to go to the hospital. A week after, he died. Now, a few weeks after this happened, I went on the internet and found out that what I saw was the Hatman, and a lot of the testimonies that other people told had a lot of similarities to mine. Something that spooked me a bit, but since I never saw it again, I just forgot about it. The only thing out of this whole experience that didn't make sense, nobody mentioned experiencing, and I've just now started wondering what it was the scream I heard that night. Why no one else heard it but me, and what was it that made that sound, since I couldn't see it and it clearly wasn't done by the Hatman. The closest thing I've managed to find that could explain what I heard could be a banshee. I've also heard that mountain lions can make similar sounds, but this is unlikely since I live in a very large city. But a banshee might have been there that night too. I'm not totally sold on this one, so I wanted to ask if anyone knows about something else that could explain it. For context, this is by far the most horrific sound I've ever heard, and I've only heard it twice in my life. The first one being that moment when the shadow entered my room, and the second one being on the morning of the next day, around the time when my grandfather had the accident, and again, I was the only one that heard that. So I feel batshit insane talking about this, but ever since I was little, I've been seeing this man, around 6 feet tall, wearing a trench coat and a fedora, sorta like a detective. The earliest memory I have of him is from when I was still a baby in a crib. It's been etched into my mind seeing him watch over me from the corner. Flash forward, I'm maybe 8 or 9. We've moved into a new house and I'm in bed about to sleep. All of a sudden, my room gets warm, I'm sweating, and I see him at the end of my bed, watching and breathing deeply. It was scary, so I yelled for my mom. She came rushing into my room, and when she entered, he disappeared, but I could still feel his presence. I could still hear him breathing from around my closet. After my mom left, he came out, and I forced myself to go to sleep. After that, for the past I don't know how many years, I've been seeing him appear and appear in most of my dreams. Over this time, the man has slowly revealed himself. He eventually stopped appearing with a trench coat and hat and, over time, became more clear. Now he looks like some contorted human. His torso is reversed, but everything else looks human, but his torso is the wrong way. He has these white-colored eyes and an abnormally large mouth, toothy, almost like a shark. For a while, he'd keep appearing as this. Eventually, a second one appeared, and more than one would be watching me, always appearing to me before I'd sleep, and would subtly appear in the background of my dreams in large crowds. Then both disappeared for around 2 months until I was in Disney about a week ago. I was laying in bed, and I saw this ghastly creature approach me. It looked like a cultist, had a star on the top of its cloak thing. It approached me and I dismissed it as just seeing things, so I went to bed. Then it happened. In my dream, someone was threatening to murder my friends and family and was hunting me down. I eventually in the dream knocked the guy down and was going to stab him. Then these cultist figures were distant in the background, and then the thing, the distorted creature once Hatman, mumbled something to me. It was something like, "Give in." I can't remember what the statement was after that. But then I woke up with pillows on the ground, staring at them with my arm up in the air like I was about to stab them with a knife. Then I looked up and around and I saw the thing in the bathroom peeking out from behind the door. Then around 15 of these cultist-looking things approached me. I got scared and hid under the covers. Also, the room was extremely cold as they were approaching me. Then last night, I was in a Discord call with a couple friends, and I mentioned this to them. Then the thing showed itself again, and a whole bunch of other figures. You could see the air particles move around them. A new one hid in my closet. My friend started telling me to chant something. He's all into this paranormal stuff. My room got extremely hot. I started hearing loud tapping on the walls, then something grabbed my arm and it wouldn't let go. I continued doing what he was saying, and it let go and retreated out of my room. I have no idea what happened, but it's terrifying. You know that feeling that most people get when down in a basement and coming up? That feeling that something is going to get you if you aren't fast enough? Most people outgrow that feeling in their teen years, I think. Well, I still get that feeling and I'm 25. but I'll tell you why. When I was growing up, we lived in an old house built sometime in the early 1900s. Not sure if that's entirely relevant, but I think it is. And it did always give the place a creepy ambiance. Drafts, cold spots, all of those things those older houses have. My chore growing up was to do the laundry, and the machines were in the basement. By this time in my life, I had outgrown that feeling of needing to get up the stairs before something got me. I've done research, and Hatman is usually associated with sleep paralysis. But some people swear to see him while wide awake as well. Anyways, I was around 14 at the time and was downstairs doing laundry. Finished putting a load in and was on my way up. Flicked off the lights. The only light switch was at the base of the stairs, and was heading up when something caught my eye. I turned to look at it and saw an all-black figure standing in the dark. How I could see something black in the black, I don't know, but it was there, clear as day. I stared at it for a while with my heart in my throat, before I flicked the light on to see what it was. Once the light was back on, there was nothing there. I even went to where I saw it. There was nothing I could have mistaken for it either. No lamp or anything standing up. Nothing down there tall enough to cast any sort of shadow like that either. Went back to the stairs and turned the light off, and it appeared again. I can tell you, I never ran up those stairs faster than I did that day. I still continued to go down and do laundry after that. It wouldn't show up every time I turned off the lights. Only once in a while. But it did get more defined each time I saw it, to the point that I could clearly make out that it wore a bowler's hat and a suit. The last time I saw it was when I was 18, right before I headed off to college. This had been happening on and off for 4 years, and every time I saw it, I ran up the stairs. This time, when the lights went off, he was there. He never did do anything to me, just stood there, and you'd think I'd have become used to him by now, but I hadn't. I never wanted to find out if it was going to do anything, but this time though, it opened its eyes. They were a subdued yellow, almost a sickly color. I dropped the laundry basket and ran upstairs. I refused to go back downstairs for the rest of the week before I moved out, and my parents thought I was crazy. I still run upstairs whenever I'm coming up from a basement, because I never want to see that thing again. It never hurt me, but I will say, it always felt kind of evil. It felt like it was stalking me and messing with me. Maybe that part is all in my head because it never did anything. Still, you'll never change my mind that there was something off about this entity.